Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Active Listening. It's so good to have you here with me today. I'm Alyssa, and I'm really excited about our topic today because it's something that can truly transform how you're perceived at work. You know, when we use English in a professional setting, we all share the same goal. We want to sound smart, confident, and professional. We want our ideas to be taken seriously and our contributions to be valued. Sometimes we think that means using really big, complicated words that no one understands. But that's not always the case. In fact, some of the most effective changes are small and subtle. Just a single word swap here and there. But those small changes can have a huge impact on your overall image and how your colleagues and your boss perceive you. So today, we're going to dive into 10 words that you can start using right away to make those powerful small changes. These aren't just vocabulary words. They're professional tools. They will help you sound more intelligent, more positive, and more confident at work. We'll go through all 10 words, and for each one, I'll give you plenty of examples in different work situations, so you know exactly how to use them. I'll also give you some practical ways to start incorporating them immediately. And make sure you listen all the way to the end, because the last word on our list isn't one you should use, but rather one you should try to avoid. And I'll give you some fantastic alternatives that will make you sound so much smarter. All right, let's jump right in with our first word. Certainly, let's start with a really common scenario. Think about the last time your boss asked you to do something, or a colleague asked for a quick favor. What was your immediate response? For most of us, we probably said something like, "Okay," or "no problem." And those are perfectly fine words, but they can be a bit too casual. Almost a little dismissive sometimes, especially if you use them all the time. They work great with friends and family, but in a professional environment, they can lack a certain polish. If you want to sound a little more professional, more positive, and more agreeable, the word certainly is a fantastic option. It's a very simple word, but it shows a genuine willingness to help and a level of respect that "okay" doesn't quite have. For instance, imagine your boss sends you an email at 4 p.m. asking you to finalize a report by the end of the day. Instead of just replying with a simple "okay," you could write, "Certainly, I'll have it to you by 5 p.m." It's professional, it's polite, and it sets a confident tone. Or let's say a colleague stops by your desk and asks for a hand with a last-minute project. Instead of saying, "Yeah, no problem," you could reply, "Certainly, I can help with that." It just sounds more purposeful, doesn't it? It communicates that you are an active, helpful member of the team. Now, I want you to think for a moment. What's a request you might get in the coming days? Practice in your mind how you could use "certainly" instead of "okay." This small shift can make a big impression. Modify. Let's be honest with ourselves for a minute. Most people don't really like change. The word change can feel big, scary, and overwhelming. Think about it. You're working hard on a project, and just before the deadline, you get an email saying there are some changes to the requirements. How do you feel? You're probably not celebrating, are you? You're likely feeling frustrated or stressed, maybe even a little resistant. The word change can feel like you have to tear everything up and start all over again. A much better, smarter word to use is modify. This word doesn't carry the same heavy feeling. It suggests a small, manageable adjustment, an improvement, not a complete overhaul. For example, in a meeting, a colleague might say, We need to change the way we deal with our customers. That sounds like a lot of work, like a huge, complicated project. But if they said, we should modify the way we deal with customers, it sounds much less scary and more manageable. It suggests a few tweaks here and there, not a complete revolution. You could also use this in an email. Let's say you're sending feedback on a document. Instead of writing, we need to change the introduction. You could write, I've included some suggestions to modify the introduction to better fit our company's new tone. It's a very subtle but important difference in tone, and it shows that you're suggesting a thoughtful adjustment, not a huge disruption. Now think about a time at work where you've heard the word change. How could you have replaced it with modify to make the suggestion sound more positive and less daunting? Complication. Here's another word that no one likes to hear at work, especially in a public setting or a meeting with clients. Problem. There's a problem with the order. The customer has a problem. The boss has a problem she needs you to solve. All of these phrases feel so negative and serious. They create a sense of urgency and often a feeling of stress. The word problem puts you on the defensive. A great alternative is complication. This word sounds a lot less serious and scary. It suggests something that is just a bit tricky to navigate, not a full-blown disaster. It also implies that you are already working on it. So instead of saying to a client, I'm sorry, but there's a problem with your order, you could say, I apologize, there's a minor complication with your order, but we're working to resolve it as we speak. Do you hear the difference? The second sentence sounds so much calmer and more professional. It shows that you're aware of the issue, but are already in control of finding a solution. It's about how you frame the situation. You can use it in team communication too. Instead of saying, we have a problem with the new software update, you could say, we've run into a small complication with the software update, but our team is on it. It helps maintain a sense of calm and competence. Try it out. Think of a time recently when you had a problem at work. How could you have described it as a complication instead? Sensational. When you want to be super positive and show that something is great, what's a word that comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's probably the word awesome. And don't get me wrong, I love the word awesome. It's a fantastic word, and native speakers use it all the time. But because of that, it can be a little overused. Having a diverse vocabulary is key to being a flexible and confident English speaker. So I want to give you another word you can use. Sensational. It's a wonderful, positive word that you can use instead of awesome to mix things up. It's also a little more formal and professional. For example, let's say a colleague presents a new idea in a team meeting. You could say, that's an awesome idea. Or to sound a little different and maybe a little more thoughtful, you could say, that's a sensational idea. It just adds a nice touch of class. Another example, maybe your team just successfully launched a new product. You could say, our sales numbers are sensational this quarter, instead of the sales numbers are awesome. It's a simple change that makes your English a little more interesting and dynamic. Take a moment right now to think of something great that happened at work recently. How could you have described it as sensational instead of awesome? Elaborate. Our next smart word is elaborate, and it simply means to give more details or to explain something in more depth. There are so many times at work when we need someone to clarify something for us, to explain it more clearly. Let's say you're in a team meeting and a coworker says something that isn't totally clear. You're not quite sure what they meant. So you could say, "What do you mean?" But that can sometimes sound a little rude or confrontational, almost like you're challenging them. A much more polite and professional way to ask for clarification is to say, "Could you please elaborate?" It gives the other person a chance to provide the details you need without feeling like they said something wrong. You can also use this in an email. If you receive instructions from a manager that are a little vague, you could respond, "Thank you for the instructions. Could you please elaborate on the timeline for this project?" It's a fantastic way to ask for more information politely. The word elaborate shows respect for the other person's input and a genuine desire to understand their point of view better. Think about a time recently when you had to ask for clarification. How could you have used elaborate to do so more professionally? Leverage. This next word is beloved in the business world. And if you use it, you'll definitely impress some people and show that you're in tune with professional language. The word is leverage, and it means to use something to get an advantage, to get a better result. It's a very powerful word. So, for example, let's say you've been analyzing your company's marketing data. You could say to your team, "We've noticed that our competitors are struggling with their social media presence. We should leverage this opportunity to increase our own social media engagement and gain an advantage in the market." Do you hear how impactful that sounds? You're not just gaining an advantage. You're actively leveraging a situation. And we can even combine it with a word we've already learned. You could say, "If we modify our marketing approach, we can get some real leverage over our competitors." See how that sounds? Much more powerful and sophisticated than saying, "If we change our marketing approach, we can get an advantage." Using words like modify and leverage just elevates your language and makes you sound really savvy, like you're a strategic thinker. Try to think of a situation at work where you could leverage an opportunity. What could you leverage to help your team or your project? Ramifications. Similar to our conversation about problems versus complications, we can use the word ramifications instead of consequences. The word consequences often has a very negative feeling to it. It sounds like something bad is going to happen as a result of a mistake. A great alternative is ramifications. It's a more neutral word that helps you talk about the potential results of an action, whether they are good or bad. It's a word used for strategic thinking. For instance, if your team is discussing a new strategy or how to modify a new process, it's important to think about the pros and cons and the potential outcomes. You could say, "We need to consider the possible ramifications of implementing this new software." This shows that you're thinking carefully and strategically about all the possible outcomes, not just the negative ones. You could also use it when talking about a past event. Instead of saying, "The consequences of that decision were terrible," you could say, "We're still analyzing the full ramifications of that decision." It sounds much more professional and less dramatic. Now, think about a big decision your team has to make. What are some of the potential ramifications of that decision? Perplexing? I love this next word. It just sounds so smart and interesting. It's perplexing. You and I both know that confusing things happen at work all the time. A customer does something strange, an email disappears, or a file goes missing. In those moments, you might say, "I'm really confused about that situation," or "I'm confused about how that happened." And while those are fine, A great alternative is perplexing. It's a more sophisticated way to express confusion. You could say to a colleague, "The data we received from the client is a little perplexing. Can we review it together?" It sounds professional and shows that you're analyzing the situation rather than just being stumped by it. You could also use it when talking about a specific event. "That whole situation with the missing files was quite perplexing." Or similar to saying, "I'm confused," you could say, "I'm a little perplexed by the results of this report." It's a smart word to have in your vocabulary. It shows that you're thinking critically about a situation that is not easily understood. Think of a time recently when you were confused by something at work. How could you have described it as perplexing instead? Straightforward. Everyone loves things that are easy to do and easy to understand. But using the word easy all the time can get a bit repetitive. A great alternative is straightforward. This word suggests that something is simple, clear, and without complications. It also has a very professional sound to it. So instead of saying, "This project is really easy," you could say, "This project is really straightforward." It's a very positive and professional way to describe a task. Maybe you're giving instructions to a new employee. You could say, "I've created a step-by-step guide. The process is quite straightforward." It gives them confidence that they can handle the task without any issues. You can also use it to describe a good working relationship. Let's say you're working with a new client, and you know they'll be great to work with. You could say to your team, "Working with this client is going to be really straightforward." It's a fantastic way to show that you anticipate a good and simple experience. What's something you could describe as straightforward right now? A process? A task? A person? Try it out. Like, avoid this word. And finally, we've reached our last point. And this one is a little different. This is a word you should actively try to avoid in professional settings. The word is like. It's a word that is used way, way too much, especially as a filler word. A word we use when we don't know what to say or we're pausing to think. In fact, you've probably heard someone use like 2, 3, or even 5 times in a single sentence. And when it's used as a filler, it can make you sound a little uncertain and less professional. Now, don't get me wrong. The word like is perfect for some situations, like when you're comparing two things. For example, "I feel like this project is going well." But when you're using it to introduce an example, there are much better options that will make you sound so much smarter. So instead of saying, "There are a lot of opportunities like this for our clients," you can say, "There are a lot of opportunities such as this for our clients." Do you hear how much more professional that sounds? Or, if you need to give a specific example, instead of saying, "You need to be really careful with this client," like, if you have a meeting, make sure you're early, you could say, "You need to be really careful with this client." For instance, if you have a meeting, make sure you're early. That one little change makes a huge difference in how your message is received. So challenge yourself. Listen to your own speech in the coming days. Are you using like as a filler word or to introduce examples? If so, try replacing it with such as or for instance. It's a difficult habit to break, but the results are so worth it. And there you have it. 10 smart words that you can start using at work immediately to sound more confident and professional, including one word you should try to use a little less. These small adjustments can have a huge impact on your confidence and how others perceive you. Now it's your turn. Practice is the only way these words will become part of your natural speech. I challenge you to choose just one or two of your favorite words from this list and use them in an example sentence. Share it with me in the comments below. It's a great way to start getting comfortable with these words so you can use them in your daily conversations at work. If you found this lesson useful, I would love to know. You can give it a thumbs up on YouTube and share it with your friends and coworkers. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future Confident English lesson. Plus, I've got a fantastic playlist for you right here, all about advanced vocabulary and collocations. Those are words that native speakers use together naturally. Be sure to check it out. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time for your English active listening lesson.